Hello, I'm Matthew Gonzalez.
Hi, I'm Desiree Gonzalez, and sorry about the technical difficulties if you've been watching. We want to welcome you again to episode 3, Journey into the Prophetic. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Hey, it is our passion to see the prophetic transform the world around us and lead people into an encounter with Jesus. We'd love for you to join us on this journey to discover how the prophetic and the supernatural are impacting and transforming the lives of everyday people.
On this show, we have some of our great friends who have influenced our lives and inspired us. They have amazing stories and testimonies about their journey into the prophetic and how it's impacting the world around them.
On today's show, we have one of our favorites, a good friend, Elizabeth Enlow. Both Elizabeth and her husband, Johnny Enlow, have a ministry called Restore 7 that is empowering a generation to restore the 7 faces of God to society. It is a movement of reformers who are expressing the love of God through practical solutions for every problem that exists in every area of culture, such as media, family, arts and entertainment, economy, education, religion, and government. And we've met Johnny and Elizabeth about 4 years ago as we served as senior leaders of a church in Stockton, California, co-senior leaders at Innovation Church. And we had them for a weekend, and it just rocked us. Amazing. And you are in for a treat tonight. So let's welcome our guest tonight, Elizabeth Enlow. How you doing?
Doing great. So excited to be a part of this, and excited about what God's doing in you guys' lives, and this live session you've been doing. It's going to really take off.
Come on.
Oh, come on. Well, let's just wait. I'm going to wait to make sure they can hear you real quick. So we got this. Let's see. Can you guys hear both of us on here? Just want to check real quick.
Yes, I know the sound. We tested it, and it was not cooperating when we went live. So could you let us know if you could hear us and Elizabeth as well?
So Elizabeth, you have a brand new book called God in Every Season, which is amazing.
Thank you.
Can you tell those who are watching about the book and a little bit about the different seasons?
Yeah, so it's God in every season. It's not talking about the seasons of life that you would typically talk about, like I'm in the later season, or I'm in the season of having kids at home, or empty nest, or a single season of my life.
Yeah.
It's something that's deeper than that.
Yes.
And it's about the seasons in our relationship with God. And I think every relationship, even healthy relationships, go through different seasons where it looks different, feels different, and it's supposed to.
Absolutely.
And it's the same in our relationship with God.
Come on.
So good.
I love it. So some of the feedback, just some of the things I've noticed about your book, I kind of ask some questions about, is how do we understand and recognize the seasons of life? And how do we discover the season of life that we're currently in? And not so much the season of life, but kind of the God season, that kind of season where we're discovering more who He is and who He wants to be inside of us.
Well, I love that you call this segment Journey into the Prophetic. And this book that I've written is not necessarily an in-your-face kind of prophetic book.
Come on.
But I believe it's prophetic in that it helps people connect with God in a way that they understand Him more. It's about ultimately the knowledge of God and what He's like, and
So
experiencing Him through the cycles that you're in on your journey with Him.
Yeah.
And so I think that the overriding way that you can know what season you are in your relationship with God is to just look at the natural. God says that the natural speaks of the spiritual.
Yes.
And for me, the kind of the download, the revelation that the Lord gave me that I talk about in the book is I use the 4 natural seasons, winter, spring, summer, and fall, and connect those to how our relationship with God goes through cycles. And just like in the natural, when you're in winter, spring, summer, and fall, there's a familiarity about it.
Yes.
You've been that way before.
That's good.
But yet there's also a moving forward, because it's a new year. It's a new it's a winter, but yet it's a winter you've never been in before.
So
it's like that in our relationship with God. There are things that are normal for the season that you're in that that may not feel normal in the moment. You know, in winter, God can feel a little more distant, but yet he's still speaking to you. He's the same God. He's just saying, he's inviting you to know him in a different way. So to answer your question about how do you know what season your relationship with God is in, I'll give a little shameless plug for the book.
Yeah.
I have an
Yes.
11-question assessment
really
in there.
good.
It takes about 15 minutes to answer it. And at the end of the questionnaire, it scores you and it tells you if you're in winter, spring, summer, or fall in your relationship with God.
Yes.
And then you can
So
go to that
helpful.
chapter and actually read about what are the unique fears, lies, and temptations that typically come with that season.
That's
And
good.
what's what are the opportunities that are unique in that season to be intimate with God in a specific kind of way. So it just shows some patterns, but it also gives you permission to find new things about who God is for you and who he's been for you in past seasons. It gives clarity, which is what the prophetic is all about, right?
Yes. Connecting.
I absolutely love that that test that you give. It's so accurate. I couldn't even believe it's so right on. You guys are going to be blessed by it.
So,
oh, cool. I'm glad to hear you did it and it felt accurate to you.
Totally. It was absolutely right on. So good.
so I think you have some questions. Well, when,
Well, yeah. I mean, one of the questions I had was, I mean, I know reading the book is going to explain a lot more in depth into this, but do you want to speak a little bit to what has been maybe one key or primary truth that has really held you in seasons that maybe were a little uncertain or unfamiliar, where you didn't quite know in the moment where you were at and what season you were at in with the Lord?
Yeah, when I was kind of living out the revelation, I tie in the book, I tie in our 4 daughters' names. And it started with somebody came to me when my youngest daughter was probably 5 or 6, and we'd already gotten through those toddler years. And he said, I was leading worship at a conference, and he said, I'd love to pay for you to do a worship CD. Well, all I did in worship was sing other people's songs so that I could hurry up and get to my favorite part, which was the prophetic flow.
Come on.
And because we pastored a church for years ourselves, the pastor gave me permission to go as long as I wanted into the prophetic between songs. So I panicked when he said, I want you to do a worship CD, because I didn't write music. But that night, the Lord woke me up in the middle of the night and showed me how I had been through 4 distinct seasons in my relationship with him over the course of about a 10-year span, from when my first daughter was born till my last daughter had gotten through her toddler years. And and I saw how their names connected directly with the things that he was teaching me and inviting me into in each of those distinct seasons. Their names are Promise, Joy, Justice, Hope, Grace, Victoria, and Glory, Ruth.
I love
And
it.
so in the book I talk about winter promise, and it's a season where you're just pressing in for something that you can't see, you can't feel, but you know that it's yours.
So
And that might look like, a breakthrough in a particular area of your life, but what it's ultimately connected to, every season is ultimately connected to our hearts going into a new place with our Father.
So
And
good. So good.
so, I think there is a lot more in the book, but that's kind of the simple version
That's
of
so
it.
good. Yes.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And kind of along those lines too, I was wanting to know if you could speak to, I understand that we've done this so many times, that we can glean from other people's process and other people's seasons and get revelation for ourselves. But what would you say to people that might be tempted to compare themselves to other people and where they're at and what that can do in their lives if they go down that road?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a fine line between knowing enough about what other people go through so that you feel normal and validated in the things that you struggle with, and you see
good,
people that might be just a little ahead of you, blaze a trail, but when we cross over that line into comparing ourselves, I think it can get dangerous, because there's a unique expression of what God looks like coming through each one of us, and it's different.
So good.
And
I love it.
Obviously he's the same, but he loves partnering with us in
Yes.
all aspects
good.
of our lives and of our journeys with him. And if you get to comparing, then, I always think of this, it's a picture, I don't even know where it came from, but it should be a meme, and maybe it is. It's where you see the ground, and you see these two little bunnies, and they're both sitting above ground, but you have the vantage point of seeing what they're on top of underneath the ground. And both of them have a carrot that they're trying to pull up.
Yeah.
And they've got the green bushy part on the top of the ground, but what we see that they don't see underground is how big the carrot is that they're trying to pull up.
So good, yep.
Has, a decent sized carrot. The other has like this huge, huge carrot and if you compare and look at what's going on, you really don't know what's going on.
That's so
That's
good.
so good.
Love
It's
it.
never what it looks like. There's always something more below the surface. And even in the book, I talk about how every season looks like the tree of life. God calls us oaks of righteousness. And when someone, for example, is in a winter season in their relationship with God, it might not look like a whole bunch is going on above ground as a tree.
Yeah.
But the root there, and they're deep, and it's a time of stillness, but in that stillness, incredible things are happening.
So good.
And you don't know, we have a hard enough time judging our own selves, more or less, trying to compare ourselves to.
Oh boy.
Absolutely.
Isn't that the truth? Oh boy.
Absolutely.
Oh boy. I got a question for you.
Always trying to remind ourselves not to do it.
Yeah.
One of the aspects that we really love about your life and has impacted us deeply, it's left an imprint in our hearts, is your ability to help people become aware of God in everything and in every realm. To see God in people and places that most believers overlook or even deem untouchable. How did that perspective develop in you? What's some truths or values that you hold on to that help develop that perspective? Because it's unique. It shouldn't be unique. It's really the eyes of Christ, the heart of Christ. But I just love it. I love how you guys just do it so well. It just oozes out of you guys' lives.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. What a compliment. For me, it's been an overflow of what started as a desperation. My mom died when I was young, and she'd been very sick for 5 years. And she, definitely modeled a relationship with Jesus. And she insisted that I have an encounter with the Holy Spirit. And before she died, I was Spirit-filled. And from a young age, with all that we went through with her death, I really, literally had nothing else but God to sustain me. And then I remember, praying a dangerous prayer, and I just had so much pain from that loss. And I think we all have pain.
Yeah.
We all have traumatic things that we went through when we were young. It's just different, but the same ultimately. And pain, if you let it will give you gifts. And the gift that the pain of the loss of my mom gave me was this, from a very young age, a very strong sense of eternity, because I knew she still exists.
Yes.
She still exists. She is in eternity where I'm going to be. And so from a young age, I just, I focused on what matters the most.
Wow.
And I kind of tend to overanalyze things, but that has been to my benefit at times.
Wow.
And so just analyzing, like, what part of life, and therefore what part of any given day and any given situation can I take with me into eternity? What really matters?
Awesome.
And what I just began to realize over and over and over again is when you dig down deep enough to the deepest question, the deepest root of any situation, it's knowing God. It's just growing in the knowledge
Yeah.
of who he is and what he's like. And when you're desperate to know him,
Yeah, that's so good.
then you're going to look for him anything, anytime, through anyone, anywhere, and cling to that. And so I feel like that's, you know, my journey is just ultimately all about picking up any sliver of the nature and character of God, the truth of who he really is, not who circumstances tell me.
Come on.
What else tells me he is? But how can I find him?
Yeah.
And so I think
so
when
good.
you do that, it develops, it exercises this spiritual muscle that I call hope. And I love a good friend of ours, Bob Hartley, shares the definition of hope is anticipation of good from God in all areas of life.
Yep.
And when you anticipate God to be good, then you're constantly looking for any evidence of his goodness.
So good.
And you know, if you can't see it in the moment, it's because it's not over, you know?
Yeah.
So Johnny and I just carried that over into obviously our personal lives and our personal challenges, but we're constantly reminding ourselves to upscale that to the bigger picture of society. The prophetic movement, I think, is gaining ground in terms of people understanding everybody can prophesy, and our prophetic gifts are for the building up and edifying and encouraging of other people. But I think as we get better and better at that language, that prophetic language between us and God and between us and other people, it's going to carry over into the bigger picture of societal issues.
Yeah.
And we'll be able to look at anything. You know, Scripture says that we overcome evil with good. You don't overcome evil with protests or with even being able to find what is evil and explaining it and theologically defending why it's evil. None of that overcomes evil.
Yes.
What overcomes God, good. What overcomes evil is simply good. And there's no good apart from God. He's the source of all good. So I'll finish with this thought because I know you'll have more questions. When you insert good into any situation, and a nuanced expression of good, what does good look like in government? What does good look like in entertainment or in family? When you insert good into any situation, big or small, people's hearts are wired to trace that ultimately back to God. I mean, what happens when you get, you guys have walked with God for many years, and when you get a good parking space in front of Starbucks, you feel just a little more loved by him. Right? A little more seen by him. And even at the other extreme, an atheist who doesn't believe God exists, who do they get the most angry with when things go like traumatically, tragically wrong?
Right.
The God who doesn't exist. So we're wired internally. When something goes good, when we see something good, it acclimates our heart to believe that there's a God and that we matter to him. So he gives us this ability to show up in someone's life in an individual setting or in an influential position to bring and insert good into something and cause people to just begin to shift in their thinking that maybe there is a God. That's what I believe.
Yes.
Hey, real quick, if you guys are watching out there and this is blessing you, would you go ahead and share it right now on Facebook? Share this and let it get out right now and bless your friends. Also, if you have any questions for Elizabeth, we're going to take one or two live questions. Would you go ahead and put them in the comment box? Give us some questions you'd like to ask Elizabeth, and we'll do one or two of those tonight. Elizabeth, one of the things I love that you just said, I've never heard it say this way, and it just rocked me so profound, is how many times we try to avoid pain, but you said pain gives us gifts. That's just profound. I've never heard that. And that is just rocking me right now. Like when we get off this, I have some writing I'm going to go do right now. You just got my revelation thoughts going. And it's so amazing how we try to avoid pain. But, I've one of the things that I've learned probably the last 5 years that we've been training and teaching. We started with our school, but now when we travel, we teach. Is that as a believer, we no longer have problems. We have opportunities. And how we see it, it's what James says, count it all joy. How do you count tribulations and trials joy unless you see them differently and know that they're going to bring something to equip you? They're not going to take from you. And just what you just said right now was just so profound, how even in the midst of pain, it's not so much that we go looking for pain, but when it shows up and it's at our door and it's knocking, that we don't reject it or react to it, but we actually try to discover the gift within that. And that's profound. It's amazing. I love that. Wow.
Yeah, another thing kind of along those same lines is that I love that you talk about the cycles that happen in the natural and that it's normal and it's supposed to happen. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, at least in my experience and even in my personal life, like we go through seasons and then we come back around to a season that feels familiar and we go into freak out mode. Wait a minute, I already went there, I already did this, I already went down this road or overcame this battle or whatever, and we think because it feels similar or the same that it's the same thing we went through last time, but it's not necessarily. It's God can be trying to insert greater things, deeper things. Or how would you explain that? I mean, I thought it was just so encouraging and such a weight lifted off for those that may feel discouraged by going through a season that maybe they thought, oh man, I'm going through this all over again kind of feeling.
Yeah. Well, again, the point of all of life is to grow in the knowledge of God. Back in 2:14 says that
so good.
The end game, the end of all of time is going to be where the knowledge of the glory of God covers the earth like the waters cover the sea. And we know that Moses asked to see God's glory, and it says that God caused, in response to his request, he caused all of his goodness to pass before him. So his glory, the nuances of how good he is, are going to flood the earth, and how much more so our individual hearts. So, I think there's so many directions I could go with this, but I think of I'm a visual person, and what's coming to mind right now is a slinky. Slinky that kids play with.
Yes.
It's like this long spiral coil, and if you stretch that out, when it's compact, it looks like it's just a circle, but when you stretch it out, you realize it's cyclical, and there are patterns to it, but it's progressive.
Yes.
So if we're partnering with God, and we understand that the goal is to know him, and his heart is to be known, that's all he's ever wanted from us, is for intimacy. You can't have intimacy apart from a mutual knowing of each other. It's just one side knowing the other, and there's a perversion in that. So God is inviting us into intimacy where it's both sides knowing each other. He knows every hair of our head, so he's saying, I'm giving you this place and time called earth, and I'm setting time into motion, and I'm setting cycles and seasons into motion as an opportunity, like you said, Matt. It's an opportunity to grow in the knowledge of what I'm really like and my true heart towards you, in an atmosphere where you can choose me or not, so that what's left over is real and authentic intimacy, where you have choice not to choose it. Mm-hmm. So I believe that everything that is connected to God only always ever increases. So it's like that slinky. There's a familiarity to it, but the character and nature of our God is patterns and cycles. We see it in everything he's created, including us and women. We know it the most in our own bodies. And those cycles that we go through are opportunities to connect ourselves to his character and nature that's always, only, ever increasing. So let that encourage you. If you feel like you're going around the same mountain over and over again, you're not. If your heart is at all towards the Lord, then I can promise you, I can assure you that he is moving you forward. And like in the winter season, I think of that as like in the book, I connect each season to a point in the lifespan of a human. And for example, winter is conception. And conception
That's good.
And the growing of a baby in a womb happens in the most hidden, dark place without the knowledge of another person knowing about it. Sometimes the mom doesn't even know it.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times we are gestating something that's really profound, that's eternal with God, and we don't even know it. And it can feel so discouraging, but that's why he says, look at me. It's not about what we're going to produce together. It's about our intimacy with each other.
I love that perspective.
Love it.
You know, I caught a little bit of a recent podcast that you and Johnny did with your daughter, which I thought was amazing. Me and my good friend Brian Orm, very just amazing prophet of God, I would say. We've been just kind of discussing how 2018, we've kind of both felt like this was the year of the roaring lion, the boldness of women, and how this is really a season of the roaring lion. The lioness coming out with a roaring voice, and we're starting to see that. We're seeing it at every level. One of the things that I loved, and they can catch maybe the replay of your podcast where at the end you can tell them where they can watch it, is how your daughter was really kind of describing, redefining what a feminist is. Ooh. And I just loved it. Oh, wow. That was so good.
I didn't watch it.
No, it's so good. I want you to speak into that. Would you speak into that a little bit, even about just what we're seeing in the body of Christ as a whole, as women are finding their place, their platform that was always theirs, that was always to be a place to run together and not to just be, I like to say it this way, they weren't just meant to just be worship leaders or just children's pastors. If you've grown up in church, that's kind of all that's kind of been modeled. And there's nothing wrong with that. So if you are a children's pastor or worship pastor, hey, that's awesome. But it shouldn't be just relegated to that. It's so much more. And you can see that in the New Testament. You see many models in the New Testament. And so I would love for you just to share your perspective and maybe speak into that.
Yes, it's hard to raise 4 daughters and not eventually come upon the topic of feminism.
Yep.
And it's Justice that we did an interview with, and she's 24 in a couple of days. And I love what I'm hearing coming out of the younger generation of women. And they are provoking my own daughters, or provoking me to just think differently and get out of a religious box that was thoroughly ingrained in me, being raised in the South. And I'm just astounded at the intentionality of God and how He is growing society up. Yeah. You know, He's not just growing the church up, He's growing society up, because to Him we're all His sons and daughters. Yep. It's just some don't yet know that they're His.
I love it.
And so even what you see in the media right now of this Me Too movement, and so many women that are finally being heard, and even human trafficking, sex trafficking, that it's not just affecting women. Obviously, men are victims. There are some men that are victims in that as well. And ultimately, we're all victims of the enemy's deception. But you see things ramping up. And you look all the way back to Genesis, where God created Adam and Eve, and He said He created them in His image, male and female. So we know that there is a feminine expression of God in the earth that cannot exist apart from women being fully released and free and launched into the fullness of that expression of God's femininity. And you know, so many of us as humans, I think we're wired to want to get it right and do it right and perform well. And so we have this voice in the back of our heads from our parents or from the generation that raised us, telling us how to get it right. Yeah. And what happens, I think, with women in particular, is we tend to it's obvious the areas that men have held women back, but I think it's a little more subtle that women hold women back.
Wow.
Because I was doing it with my own daughters. The very opposite of my
That's so good.
my heart's desire for them, and not even knowing it, because I was teaching them the voice in my head of, if you behave like this and you talk like this and you don't do this and you don't do that, then you are successful.
Wow.
And this is what success as a woman looks like. So, they've blown all the doors and windows and walls off of that box in my thinking, because like all kids growing up, they ask why? Why?
Yep.
And just, I didn't have a lot of answers for things that I realized we had to figure out together, and we're still figuring out. But I love it that it's our turn.
Come on.
The greatest source, I would say, in my marriage with Johnny, my greatest source of angst and frustration is the same area of my greatest source of joy and excitement. And it's this understanding of, how do we do this as a team? How do I find my voice?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of women can relate to that.
Yep.
And, I've said so many times through the years, unfortunately, I'm not one of those women, and I'm okay with the ones that are, but I'm not one of those women that is content just being a wife and a mother. I love being a wife and a mother. Wouldn't trade it, but I shouldn't have to trade it.
Yeah.
There's so much more that God's put in me. I just felt like I would explode if I couldn't find an expression for it. And it took us a while for us to find that pace. Not that you have to do something with your husband in order to find that, but that happened to be where my expression was. So anyway, I could go on and on too long about all that.
No, that is so good.
So good.
I can't tell you, I relate to that on so many levels. Because I remember feeling that, I had desires to do certain things, and the moment I got pregnant with our first daughter, I felt such a like shame. I don't know what the right word is. I guess guilty. I felt so guilty for wanting to do other things other than just being a mom. I literally even had people tell me or give me words according to almost kind of rebuking me for that. And so that's really encouraging just to hear you say that. And, I feel like, I mean, since then I've worked through it and stuff like that, but I feel like just hearing you say that, I feel like there's so many, I mean, I'm assuming this, I think there's a lot of other moms that can relate to that feeling. And of course, again, I totally, absolutely 100% agree. Being a mother and a wife is like the most amazing thing ever, and you wouldn't trade it for the world. But it's almost like I had this feeling like, okay, life's on pause now until, 20 whatever years, until the last one's out of the house or whatever. And I just don't think that was God's heart in being a mom, is that that's all you're allowed to be. That's the primary joy of my heart, but that's not all. That's not all. So I love that.
And you guys have been a mom. Oh, go ahead.
It's that place where we receive our training, and we're hearing the Father's voice in the everyday mundane. And so then it has to have an expression, outside of your home, and that could look a cajillion different ways,
right? Yes.
For women, but I think if we women can give each other the freedom to discover that and then support it, however it looks through each one of us.
Absolutely.
One of the things you said, and I think it's being around you guys, we see it modeled, and it's actually something that me and Desi are really going out. Is the whole teamwork. What does that look like in our relationship? And I know you had quoted Genesis. I think one of the things that I love, I've been kind of sharing this aspect, is that, if God made us in His image, man and woman, then there's something, this is one of our passions about marriage and family, is that when a husband and wife are a team, it's actually a prophetic picture of the fullness of God's nature to society.
Exactly.
And when it's lacking one, we don't see the fullness. And I love that. And you guys model that so well.
Yes. We're learning on the job. The learning process.
Yes.
Come on. So I just love that even the language. One of the things I do value about what you guys do is you guys have great language, and culture is built on language, and some of the language that you guys are using are really creating culture, and I just value that about both of you guys, and just even some of the things you're sharing right now is just so amazing. So real quick, last question before we jump to any questions. Can you just share a little bit? This show is called Journey to Prophetic. Can you kind of share what your journey's been like into prophetic, how it started, or even just some powerful testimonies or encounters that you would like to share that would actually encourage those who are either seasoned in the prophetic or maybe just starting to learn how to hear God's voice and learn about the prophetic?
Wow. Let's see. The prophetic started for me when I was a teenager, and I realized that when I would pray for people, I would be in settings where I would be invited to pray for someone, and I was in a private Christian school that did not believe in the gifts of the Spirit. So they knew something was different when I prayed, and I started realizing something was different. It's like I would have this inner knowing of things and of people, and then I realized there was a connection between whenever I felt like love or compassion towards another person, I just would know more things about them. And then, of course, many years later, as Johnny and I began traveling to other cities and nations and ministering, we started realizing that when you ask the Father to give you a love for a people group or for a region or for a local church, that through that same love, when you become a conduit for the love of the Father towards anything or anyone,
so you
start picking up on His perspective of that person or that region or that people group, and we started prophesying over nations and into governments and into just so many crazy things. I'll tell you one quick story that comes to mind right now. We were, this was probably about 7 years ago, maybe 6, I'm bad with time. Anyway, we had been invited to go to the premiere of Justin Bieber's movie his first movie that came out, kind of a documentary about his life. And so we flew from Atlanta to LA, and it was a whole day of the prophetic. That was so fun. We went on the Ellen show to watch Justin be on there. It was his first time ever being on the show, if I remember correctly. And they said, hey, well, we want to introduce you to somebody. We were backstage, and they opened up one of the doors, and it was Usher. And so, he sticks his hand out. It's another fan, and I just remember just taking his hand, and I didn't let it go, and I just said something about, I just began to prophesy over him, and just
Come on.
impression of him, and it was such an honor to just love on him in that way. Then later that night, we went to an after show party, and I was just hanging out outside of the party, and there was this big burly guy who was a what do you call that? The
bouncer?
The
bouncer. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was out there, and I'm just looking at him, and he's not looking at me. He's just looking around, and all of a sudden, I just got this whole download about him and about his relationship with his little boy and his nickname and all of this. And so I just said, hey, listen, I'm a Christian, and I ask, this is how I frequently will say, it's a little tip for people. I just kind of put him at ease by saying, I'm a Christian, and every day I just ask God to show me people that He wants to encourage and that He loves, and to tell me anything about them that would encourage them. And I said, so He just told me something about you that I really think would encourage you. Do you want to hear it? And
how could you deny that?
Anybody could have gone in and out at that point, because I had all of his attention and just tears running down his face. And nobody ever could have known that except for God. And like his relationship with God was it when we feel seen by God, there's nothing like it.
Yes.
Those are a couple of stories. I have so many more, but I don't know how much time we have.
Awesome.
So
well, we do have a question.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think there's just one on here, and Tamara wants to know if you have a workbook that goes with your book.
Well, I have just about finished writing it.
Oh,
And,
awesome.
Yeah, so I'm hoping to release it kind of as an e-course,
Yes.
and that people can do in a small group or on their own. So just stay in touch, and
Yes.
we'll announce it when it's ready. Thank you for asking that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we'll go ahead. So you have a new book out. I'm going to put the slide up. It's God in Every Season. They can get it right now at www.restore7.org or on Amazon. And it's an amazing book. I highly recommend that you get this book. You will not regret it. It is amazing, guys. And so make sure you get it right now. Also,
Yes.
we found out about God in Every Season because you came when we were pastors at a church, came and did a women's event of God in Every Season.
Yes.
And that's something you do right now, right? You are doing, you're speaking and doing women events. Did you want to kind of share about that?
Yes, my passion is to teach. I love teaching. I love preaching. And Johnny and I frequently do that together as a tag team when we're invited places. But I especially enjoy, you told me I'd say this a few years ago. I would have been like, nah. But I really enjoy kind of a weekend away with a group of women. That's just really fun to pour into girlfriends, and have that girl time. But, I'm available for churches also.
Yes. And how can they get a hold of you guys?
So if they go on our website, restore7.org, because we're all about restoring the 7 faces of God into every area of culture, restore7.org. There's a contact email on there. There's also an invite, and they can go, if there's a specific event, they would go on the invite and just fill out all the information, and that will make it to me, and then we'll get back with them and let them know if there's availability in our schedule and all that good stuff.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being our guest today on Journey Prophetic. Thank you so much. There was just so much that I feel like we got to do a second one. We have to do another one because you were saying something. I was like, we could totally go here. This would be so good. So we have to do it. You know what would be awesome is maybe do one with you and your daughter together. That would be amazing. Maybe something like that in the future.
Fun. Well, we're here and we're friends. So any way we can come alongside you guys and be a part of what you're doing, it would be an honor for us. And I know Johnny would come on here too.
Yes.
I'll tell him it's his turn soon.
Yes, and speaking of that, we will be having Johnny here soon on Journey Prophetic. And also, next thing I think we want to do is come get a bowl of heaven with you guys. So we got to come back up and have a bowl of heaven. And so
good stuff.
that's some free promo right there for Bowl of Heaven if you're watching. It's Bowl of Heaven. That's what it's called, correct? Yeah, that was amazing.
Bowls and coconut ice cream, all that good stuff.
Yeah. Which we since the last time we had it, we craved it. We were craving it. So on the way back a few weeks ago from the Magic Conference, we stopped and got a bowl. We're thinking of you guys. So we're in your home territory. So, we love you. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. We so appreciate you, Elizabeth.
Love you guys too. Thanks so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Well, hey, you guys, we have a couple announcements that we wanted to make known to you guys real quick. Hey, May 16th and 18th, mark your calendars. We have School of Prophetic Trainers here in Vacaville at the Mission Church in Vacaville. We have our prophetic company that's going to be coming together. If you have a heart, we're really speaking to leaders. If you have a heart to train people in the prophetic, you want to come out to this event. It's training the trainers and how to train people in prophetic, giving tools, activation, so many activations. We have a beginner's level, intermediate, and advanced level. Beginner's level, we're training how trainers can teach the basics of training people, how to hear the voice of God. Intermediate level, which we oversee, me and Desi, at the Mission Church in Vacaville is taking the gift of prophecy and seeing how it can transfer over to the 7 mountains of society. And then we have an advanced prophetic, which we'll be teaching there to the trainers. So join us. That's May 16th through the 18th. And you can actually catch it right here. It's at the Mission Church in Vacaville. You can sign up. Registration is now available online right now at www.missionvacaville.org/events. Go sign up for that. It's going to be amazing, amazing event. Also, if you're in the Pullman, Washington area, me and Desi are going to be doing an Activate Prophetic Conference with our good friends Tom and Jenny Lefford at Revival Life and lifestyle.org. It's March 23rd through the 24th. So if you're in the Pullman, Washington area, come join us. It's going to be an amazing. The conference is free, but you have to sign up, and you can register for that at www.revivallifestyle.org. Shout out to Tom and Jenny. We can't wait to see you guys. Also, if you'd like to find out more about our ministry, Kingdom Culture Ministries, and how to become a partner or to book us for a speaking engagement, or you'd like to find out more about our prophetic consulting, you can do that by going to www.matthewgonzalez.com. That's www.matthewgonzalez.com. And we would love to just connect with you any way we can. Yes. So we want to say thank you for joining us today on Journey into the Prophetic. We want to encourage you to continue this journey with us. Go to our website, www.matthewgonzalez.com, or follow us on Facebook, on our Facebook page for updates on the next Journey into Prophetic episode and to watch previous episodes. On our next episode next month, we have our great, great friend, Dan McCollum, and we can't wait. You don't want to miss that. We're going to be talking about prophetic company, prophetic community, how to develop that. It's going to be amazing.
Yes, do not miss that. And the very last thing we want to say before we say goodnight is, if you have enjoyed this, we so enjoyed it. If you would do us a huge favor and share it on your Facebook page to your friends, that would be a huge blessing. Not only to us and to Elizabeth, but to your friends. I mean, this was awesome stuff. So please share it, and we would so appreciate that. And we will see you next time on Journey into the Prophetic. Good night, guys.
Good night, guys. Love you guys.